समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Iran is in turmoil now for more than a week, and depending on where you're reading from, looks like lots of people have died. Some sources or some outlets might put the number at 5,000, 6,000. Iranian government, however, a senior Iranian official himself has spoken to Reuters today and has admitted to 2,000 deaths. 2,000 deaths in protests these days in 2026 is a very large number. I know that you are expecting me to say even for Iran, but particularly for Iran. And that is what we need to understand about Iran. Iran is not just any other third world poor country, Islamic theocracy. And Iran is an ancient civilizational state with a very strong nationalism. It isn't one of those many countries in the Middle East which were created with straight line borders as a result of the arrangements after big power arrangements after the end of the Ottoman Empire. Iran is a very sophisticated country. I will take you through that as we talk further. But the fact is that Iran, while our stereotype about Iran is that of a country run by the Ayatollahs from their holy headquarters or holy capital at Qom, and they are the ones giving everybody orders. That is true. They are doing that. At the same time, Iran has a very vibrant population, very healthy demographics, excellent social indicators. Social indicators better than most of the developed world. Definitely, and I will tell you in detail as we go along. Iran also has deep crisis. It has a deep economic crisis, which is also owed to its politics. So Iran is a dictatorship, but with a population which has a strong democratic impulse as well. And that's why Iran has continued to have protests. If you see the outburst on Tehran streets now, as those on the streets of all major Iran cities, Mashhad, Isfahan, Shiraz, etc., and also now in small towns, and as we read, in many villages as well. Not that much is coming out of Iran simply because the government has ordered, or the regime has ordered, a total internet shutdown. After that, Elon Musk made some Starlink terminals available for more stuff to come out of Iran, and some videos have been coming out. But the regime has also been able to jam quite a bit of this because the regime has two very important allies. That is Russia, with which it has a very important security alliance because it's been helping make Russia all these Mashhad drones by the thousands plus some other missiles and things. In fact, thousands is an understatement. In tens of thousands, those are the ones which are sent in swarms over Ukraine. And with China, it has a different kind of relationship. China gives it a lot of important technology. At the same time, 90% of all of Iran's oil is sanctioned. So it's not able to sell any of it legally, but to China, because the Chinese don't bother about American sanctions, Chinese buy it. 90% of Iran's oil is exported to China. Remaining 10% must be going through leakage or through shadow tankers. A lot of it is also smuggled across the border into Pakistan. The upshot is that both Russia and China have reasons to help Iran. And that's probably also the reason that Iran has been able to jam these Starlink terminals. In spite of that, a lot of the news is coming out. It's also coming out because people in Iran are very smart. I said earlier that this is a very sophisticated population. First of all, it's a large population. In the Middle East, Iran is the second most populous country. The most populous country is, of course, Egypt, but the difference is not that much. Egypt is just a little over 10 crores. Iran is about 9.2 2 crores. So Iran's a large population for an Islamic country, fully Islamic country in the Middle East. Second most populous country, very ideological country, run by an ideological Islamist regime. 89% of its population, 89 to 90% is Shia. So it's Islamic, but it's also Shia. 89% is Shia, about 10% is Sunni, and the remaining 1% will be Baha'is, Christians, etc., etc. In fact, Baha'is and others have been persecuted over time and driven out. Baha'is, Jews, etc. They've all been driven out of Iran. Many of the Baha'is live in India. In fact, India in many ways has become the center of Baha'ism. You see the Baha'i temple in Delhi. Many of the Baha'i activists also are in India who've been campaigning against excesses on Baha'is, on whatever number of Baha'is remain in Iran as well. Also, ethnically, it's quite unidimensional. It's a Persian ethnicity. There are some Kurds, there are some minorities on the extremities of Iran. So it's a very cohesive population. However, why do we call it so sophisticated? This population, if you just take out the working age population, according to World Bank, 61% people, 61% of Iranians in the working age population have university degrees. That's more than twice as much than say India, 61%. And it's the same number for men as well as women. Literacy, if you look at Iran's overall literacy, it's about 89% going to 90%, almost like first world status. And then within that, in the population between age 15 to 24, young people, it is 99%. 99% literacy for 15 to 24 age group. And funnily, when I look at the data on the globaleconomy.com and also on the World Bank website, it is about 99% straight for women and 98.7% for men. Once again, this, I know the difference is very small, but usually your stereotype would be that in an Islamic country, women would be much less educated than men, not in Iran. The other stereotype about Islamic countries and societies, that their population growth must be very steep. It's the opposite for Iran. The total fertility rate for Iran is between 1.6 to 1.7. That is comparable, say, with Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Punjab in India. It is well below replacement level. On this metric too, Iran is comparable with the most developed countries in the Western world. It is that population which is now out in the street because that population needs jobs. Among these graduates, more than 37% have no jobs. And even if they have a job, increasingly their salary matters less and less. Why? Because inflation rate in Iran right now is more than 50%. 50%. How much does it hurt us when it gets to double-digit figures? In India, if inflation goes to double digits, governments lose elections. UPA, one of the reasons UPA did so badly in 2014 was that in that brief period, last couple of years of UPA, inflation got close to the double-digit mark. It also crossed it briefly. Double-digit inflation means a government will lose in India. Government will lose power. In Iran, it's 50%. And it's been running very high traditionally for a long time. It's been made much worse since June last year when that short war with Israel took place, in which Americans also got involved. But truth to tell, it's been worsening steeply. It's been going downhill steeply since the October 7, 2023 Hamas attacks in Israeli mainland, which had support from Iran and which was celebrated in Iran. Hamas, for all practical purposes, was an Iranian proxy, is an Iranian proxy. To understand what an impact October 7, 2023 has had on Iran's economy, in 2023, Iran's economic growth rate was 5.3, quite healthy, 5.3% growth rate. Last year, it was 0.6%. That's the kind of decline Iran has had, and that's the kind of price that the Iranians are paying for their so-called exportable Islamic revolution. That particular moment when the continuing downslide of Iranian economy became particularly steep. That we covered in our episode 60 and 84, of which I will share a link with you. Please do check it out. However, let me stay for a moment with the argument that Iran is actually a much more sophisticated country than we imagine, and it's much smarter than many of its neighbors. See the QS rankings of international universities that just came out. 500 top universities in the world. At least two of those universities have traditionally been Iran's universities. Sometimes three universities. So this year the two universities are Amir Kabir University of Technology and Iran University of Science and Technology. Two universities make the top 500 list of QS rankings, where no Indian university, let's be humble, no Indian university features in those top 500. And Iran has achieved this in spite of the most crippling sanctions for such a long time. And yet Iran is one of the longest lasting dictatorships in the world, longest in both senses. One, in the sense of being a system of dictatorship that started in early 50s when Shah of Iran took over with Western support, American and British support, and made compromises over his oil. That's what Britain and the US were interested in. He ran a very tough regime, helped along by a brutal secret police, Sabak in the end, because of which ultimately he was thrown out because of popular protests. No outsider came and liberated Iran. It's people of Iran who in early 1979, got rid of the Shah. 1st February 1979, Khomeini, who had been in exile for more than 15 years in Paris, he came back in, he got a hero's welcome. And what happened? People thought there'll be change, but he only laid the foundation for a new dictatorship, if anything, even tougher than the previous one. A cruel irony is that among the political forces that really supported Khomeini's return and that fought against Shah of Iran, the left in Iran, they were the first ones to be targeted by Khomeini's regime, and soon they ceased to exist. Most of them were killed. Some were jailed for a long time until they died in jail. A few escaped, but the left in Iran was the first force that Imam Khomeini targeted. That said, the second definition of the longest dictatorship. I said longest dictatorship as a system going back to the 50s, but there was a Shah for a long time. And then there was Khomeini for almost a decade. Since then, since 1989, Khomeini's successor, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, he's been ruling. That makes it 37 years. He's in the 37th year of his dictatorship. That makes him the longest lasting dictator in the world's history. 37 years for one dictator. He's in any case the longest lasting in the world right now. He's 86 years old. He does not have an obvious successor, although his son Mujtaba, he's running one part of IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. That's the armed elite, which is the guardian of the ideology of the Ayatollahs and answers directly to them. Within IRGC, Mujtaba supposedly heads Basij. Basij are like moral police, internal security police, everything rolled into one. They are the ones who've been catching women for not wearing the hijab properly. And they are the ones also who are now carrying out repression over the protesters. Again, let's get a picture of Iran. See the map of Iran. I told you just over 9 crore people, 9.2 crore people. It is very heavily urbanized. Tehran, the city of Tehran itself has a little over a crore people or just over a crore people. That means more than 10% of Iranians live in one city, the capital city. And if you add the suburbs, that number will be much larger. If you add other major cities, Mashhad, 3.5 million, Isfahan, 2.36 million, Tabriz, 1.8 million, Shiraz, 1.78 million, you can see it is a very heavily urbanized city. And now it's begun to have problems because the same cities now are short of power, they are short of water. Tehran itself is so short of water that at some point the regime talked about shifting the capital southwest somewhere close to the Persian Gulf. That's not going to happen, but it's those ideas which have been floating there because living in cities has become such a desperate situation. The country has 50%, the country, as I told you, has 50% inflation. the currency has been declining. It's been declining so steeply that today it is 1.47 million. 14,70,000 1.47 million real, the local currency, to a dollar. For in comparison, in 1979, it was 70 real to a dollar. So from 70 real to a dollar when Khomeini took over, it's today 1.47 real to a dollar, which means if somebody gets a salary of $100, it's like being paid 1.47 crore reals. It's really a situation where you take money in a wheelbarrow to buy a loaf of bread. And that's the reason that shopkeepers increasingly have not been selling. They have not been selling because they know that if I sell today, the real that I get will lose value by tomorrow, and the goods I have will have more value by tomorrow. So why should I sell them now? That's also the reason why the leadership of the protest this time, the first spontaneous protests have come from traders or what is called bazaris. You will find many familiar expressions when you talk about Iran because after all, a lot of our language also uses Persian words. So bazaris are traders. They are the ones who revolted first this time because their businesses had come to a standstill. The other thing that you hear a lot in these protests is, what do people want? They say, I want zindagi normal, which means I want to lead a normal life. So zindagi normal, Bazari is coming out. Also reminds us of the proximity we have with Iran and the Persian culture and the language itself. Remember, until the British came in, Persian used to be the court language in India. So once we know that Iranians are smart people, we can also understand while they've been revolting periodically, even under the Ayatollahs. So first big one was in 1999, and people came out in protest against the shutting down of a reformist newspaper. Then 2009, this is when Ahmadinejad was elected. It was widely believed that that vote was fixed, so people came out in protest. That movement was called Green Movement. Leaders of that movement was arrested. Enormous repression was unleashed on them. They were arrested. Many of them are still sitting in jail. 2022, that was the revolt by women against the enforcement of hijab rules. That movement was called Woman, Life, Freedom. That was after the killing of Mahsa Amini. That is something that we are most familiar with because it happened just the other day. So periodically, people have come out to protest in Iran. What is different this time is that in the past, protests were either social or political or ideological or gender based, which is also social, which is also a variant of social. This time it's a combination of all of that, but the strongest motivation underpinning these protests is economic. It's economic, and it's also the belief that the theocracy stands exposed, that the dictatorship or the regime stands naked. How? Because one, they have not been able to protect the economy. The economy is completely in a free fall. And second, they can't even protect the skies. So Israeli Air Force has the free run of the Iranian airspace. They've come and bombed Iran. They've taken out Iran's top officials, also Iran's very important guests, particularly Hamas leaders in Iran, Iran's nuclear scientists. Americans have come and bombed Iran, and Iran's had no capability, or the regimes had no capability of fighting back. So here is a regime that has failed to do anything with the economy, as the economy has destroyed itself. At the same time, it's incapable of protecting itself while continuing to talk about Islamic revolution, taking it to Israel, death to America, death to Israel. That is something that Iran's people are fed up with, and that is what has resulted in so many people coming out on the streets and shouting these slogans. In fact, even if you hear these slogans, these are very interesting slogans. It says, not for Gaza, not for Lebanon, my life only for Iran, right? So this is a rejection of the theocracy's global Islamic revolutionary campaign. Also, there are slogans like their children in Canada, my children in jail. Because just like we saw in Nepal, TikTok videos, Instagram videos of the children of the top IRGC officials and also political elites in Iran who've gone to West. Those pictures are coming out, those videos are coming out, and that's driving up popular anger. Just a few months back, videos and pictures of a wedding in Tehran surfaced. And this was the wedding of the daughter of Ali Shamkhani, who was a former Minister of Defense and also Khamenei's political advisor. His daughter wasn't wearing any hijab or parda. She was wearing a very trendy Western wedding gown, and it's not as if it was in the Zanana. There were male guests also around her. And once again, it fed into the feeling that the elites want these restrictions for others, while for themselves they lead luxurious lives. At the end of this episode, I will suggest some readings to you. You can check them out if you want to understand the issue in more detail. However, there is one paper, one article from The Atlantic, from Karim Sajjadpur and Jack Goldstone that lists 5 causes why revolutions take place. 1. Fiscal crisis. 2. Divided elites. 3. Diverse opposition coalition. 4. Convincing narrative of resistance. And 5. Favorable international environment. The authors argue that all 5 now exist in Iran. For example, as I told you earlier, in India, double-digit inflation will bring any government down, right? In Iran, it's running for 50%. Food inflation last year has gone to 70%. And an Iranian official has told the media that he expects, in fact, he is warned realistically that this may go up by another 25 to 30% in the next few weeks. In the process, within a year, 15 million Iranians, that is 1.5 crores over a population of 9 crores, 15 million Iranians have come down, have fallen from middle class to working classes, and there also jobs are not available. Iran's economy has come to a standstill because of sanctions. 80% of Iran's exports are oil. 90% of that oil, as I told you, is exported to China, and because China has a monopoly, it can pretty much set the price at which it buys Iranian oil. With Iranian oil, there is no price caps, unlike with Russian oil, because in this case, the Chinese are buying it, defying the American sanctions. आपने जो करना है कर लो, आप जानते हो मैं कौन हूँ, right? On that basis, in the process, China is paying whatever it wants for this oil, and that is further devastating Iran's economy. Now the second point, divided elites. Elites are divided because while the regime said they will have democracy, they will have elected leaders, they do hold elections. Sometimes these are seen to be reasonably fair. Sometimes these are fixed at the nomination level. So some people are that the Ayatollahs don't want are not even allowed to contest. Sometimes the elections are rigged, as was the case in 2009 with Ahmadinejad. However, we have to see what happens to people who actually get elected. All of them then fade away, and they are made to deliberately fade away. Mahmoud Khatami has a media bar, cannot talk to the media. These are former presidents. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is marginalized and currently kept under surveillance. Hassan Rouhani was barred from contesting from the membership of the 88-member Assembly of Experts that will select the next Ayatollah. The clergy structure and the regime leadership structure has become now a mediocrity, as the USSR had become in the last days of the Soviet Empire. That is what has led to divided elites. The only important thing here is, which is what's keeping Iran together, is that the security forces are intact. There have been no defections either from the Army, Navy, Air Force or from IRGC, in spite of assassinations from the Iranians. That is something that is still keeping Iran cohesive as a state. Point number 3, a diverse opposition coalition has come in. This time there are women, there are the youth, there are the Bazaris, there is labor, ethnic minorities, however small they may be, Kurds and others. And also theocracy is discredited क्योंकि उनकी चलती नहीं है. Nobody listens to them. They are not able to distribute oil income as say the rulers of Qatar do, or the rulers of Saudi Arabia or UAE have been doing. Iranians can't do it, nor can they protect their nation or their airspace. Once again, the important counter to this is that the elites have still not gone with the protesters, which brings us to the fourth criterion, which is a convincing narrative of resistance. That's building up now because the ideology of pan-Islamic revolution now looks defeated. This opposition this time, this protest is not social, it's not purely economic, it's not ideological. In fact, this is now nationalistic. So Patriotism is what is driving these crowds. And one very important thing that you notice when you see videos of these protests, you hear almost no Islamic slogan chanted. I see many Twitter handles now saying, have you ever heard Allahu Akbar in these protests? I don't know. I haven't seen all of the videos of the protests. So if you see all of them, maybe there will be some of those. But of all that I have seen, all slogans are political. They want the regime to go. They are not about religion. To that extent, this population of Iran seems to have liberated itself from religion for the moment, at least from the political religion for the moment. They don't seem to accept that just religion entitles the Ayatollahs to rule their country like dictators, to ruin his economy, and also to get beaten up by Israel and America at will. And finally, the fifth criterion, international environment. Iran today is the most isolated country in the world after North Korea. Its only friends right now are Russia and China. China will look after its own interests and see what suits it. China is not going to go to war to protect Iran, and Russia has got problems of its own. Besides that, Iran has no friends. And what's made it worse for Iran, that all their proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, all the groups in Iraq, all of those have been beaten up. They are either finished or their leadership is finished, or they made their local truces. For example, Houthis now, they suffered a great deal from attacks by Iran, America and its allies. After that, they've also made some kind of a peace with America, at least for now. And besides the proxies, whatever allies the Iranians had, those are gone. Assad is gone in Syria. So there is no Iranian foothold in Syria anymore. Syria is now run by a ruler who's absolutely not going with Iran. In fact, for all practical purposes, he's anti-Iranian, Ahmad al-Shara. And Maduro. Venezuela was a very important market and very important operating place for the Iranians. Also for their human trafficking, smuggling, shadow tanker fleet, etc. That is now gone. The loss of Maduro and Assad has further isolated the Iranian regime. So all of the Iranian theocracies, proxies, or what they called axis of resistance, that's now been destroyed. And the fact is, all of this started with October 7, 2023 and the celebrations that followed, to the extent that if the Iranian regime falls, the beginning of the fall of the regime would be from 7th October 2023. And if you thought Iran's international environment was not bad enough, then think Donald Trump. I haven't even mentioned his name as yet, because he's completely changed the picture, because he's willing to get involved in every way except putting troops on the ground. And he's been doing it, threatening and also putting restraints on the use of force by the Iranian regime.
And even as I was recording this one, this Truth Social post popped up. Please see it on your screen, where Donald Trump is simply asking the Iranians to keep on protesting and saying help is coming for them soon.
These are the five criteria which say that probably this regime could fall. We don't know what will happen tomorrow, because after all, the Ayatollahs have nowhere to go. In the past, Shah was able to escape to the Western world, and he had cancer, and to spend rest of his life safely there. Ayatollahs have no such option. In any case, Khamenei is now 86, and there are other leaders of IRGC who know that if this regime falls, they might have a very tough life after that. So if this regime falls, what could happen? Some of that has been gamed by an Iranian origin scholar, Karim Sajjadpur, from whose papers I've been reading quite a bit, from Carnegie. And he says that following are the possibilities. If the Ayatollahs go away, and this is from his paper, Autumn of the Ayatollahs. I will give you a reference. Autumn of the Ayatollahs, published last year, published in the November-December issue of Foreign Affairs magazine. Number one, from a religious theocracy, it could become a Chinese-style technocracy, which means generals, other regime people take over and they run it like technocrats, Chinese-style technocracy. Number two, it becomes a Pakistan-like national security state run by the generals. In this case, it will be generals of the IRGC. Number three, it could become a reactionary state like Putin's Russia, but that is not going to happen. Putin's Russia has oil, Iran has oil, but Putin's Russia also has more nukes than even the Americans. It has more nukes than the rest of the world. Iranians haven't got it, but that's a possibility that it discusses. And number 5, it says it could become an elected authoritarian state like Erdogan's Turkey. The fact is, when upheavals like this take place, results can often surprise you because you don't know what will emerge and what happens if the regime collapses. We've seen in the same neighborhood regime after regime collapse as a result of the Arab Spring in 2011-12, and those countries all became broken. They've all become failed states except Egypt, where the military came back in power. So what might happen in Iran? Right now, while there is this loose coalition of protesters, no leader has emerged. The only one who's talking as a leader is Raza Pahlavi, who's the son of the Shah of Iran, earlier who was thrown out in the 1979 revolution. Now, he does not have any organization in Iran yet. He's a symbolic leader around whom a coalition could be built. But remember also that he's been living outside of Iran for almost 50 years now. So Iran is not in an easy place by any stretch of imagination. That is the kind of zone Iran is going into now. What kind of situation Iran is in, I can do no better than quote from Iran's current president, Masoud Pezeshkian, who sounds exasperated, speaking to government officers, to whom he said, the government is stuck, really badly stuck. Catastrophes are raining down. The problem is us. This is the president himself, Masoud Pezeshkian. And then talking to university students, he said, if someone can do something, by all means, go for it. I can't do anything. Don't curse me. You can also see that there is a certain distancing between the elected leader and the clergy, which has the real power. I will conclude by saying that this is an ongoing story. You ain't seen nothing yet. This will play out, and this might be longer lasting than the protests we've seen in the past for all the reasons that I've given you. You want to read more? I will list 3 readings for you. You will see them on your screen. One is The Iran Regime Could Fall, but a US Strike Would Prop It Up, by Jamshed and Carol Choksi, both Indiana University academics in America. This is from Foreign Affairs. Number 2, Bloody Lessons the Ayatollah Took from Shah, by David Remnick in New Yorker. And number 3, by Karim Sajjadpur, who we just quoted, Karim Sajjadpur and Jack Goldstone in The Atlantic. Is the Iranian regime about to collapse? 5 conditions determine whether revolutions succeed. Those are the 5 conditions that we elaborated for you.